Okay, hello and welcome. We will get started shortly, though we will start fairly slowly as is customary. Just let everyone get a chance to get back with their cuppa. Before we do begin, I will take a moment to acknowledge the original owners of country throughout Australia and its collection of surrounding islands. I'm coming to you from the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, excuse me, and I myself have connections to the lands of the Awabakal people. Today I'd like to pay special respects to a person who I don't think is a First Nations Australian, but nevertheless I'd like to pay due respects to New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet for the decision to fly the Aboriginal flag on the Sydney Harbour Bridge permanently. I'll also pay respects to any mob with us here today, all elders, whether they be past, present or emerging, and I will recognise that these lands were never ceded and that sovereignty was never extinguished. Little bit of housekeeping for us today. This piece of software won't let you unmute yourself, so if you do have a question, please feel free to submit it in the questions section of your control panel. We're recording right now, and I will try to get this on our website by the end of the day, definitely by the end of the week. I did show everyone where to find documentation and things like the video library of the previous training sessions. Last week, I showed that. I may do it again today if we get time, but we don't have a ton of time here today. Okay, welcome to class training. Today we continue our series of general user class training, the basics of class. Today we're looking at new intake and triage. My name is Samuel Martin. I've been on the ICT team at CLCs Australia for the last 2.5 years and been doing these training sessions for roughly the last 18 months or so. Okay, today we're looking at new intake and then we'll look at triage now. We don't have a ton of people on this session yet, and I haven't actually been babbling for that long, but I will need to get started shortly. I am just trying to use up a little bit more time. That's what I did want to say. We have about 30 minutes scheduled in for today's session. Not sure how we'll go. We'll wait and see, but I will try and keep this to roughly about 30 minutes. Okay, so new intake, let's start with new intake. So the new intake process is one of two processes, one of two different processes that we have in class for adding clients to class. So we get a new client, we want to record that client in class and then record some services to that client. So we have two different processes for doing that. The new intake process is the officially recommended process from CLCs Australia. The reason for that is step 3 of this process, the conflict check, which is inbuilt. It's built into this process. It's kind of automatic almost. We'll go through the other process next week, the alternate intake process. That's not the officially recommended process for adding clients and services to class, but I will show you that next week, just in case that is what your center has decided that you do. We do have the two processes there for you, so if you want to use the alternate intake process, you can. However, the new intake process is the officially recommended one. Now, it can be either a 3, a 4, or a 5-step process, depending on a number of things, actually. So we'll start with the service details, and the type of service, or service type, if you like, is going to be one of the main determining factors that determines whether this process is a 3, 4, or 5-step process. And we'll see that a bit later. So I might flick across the class and we'll have a look at what I'm talking about. And I'll go through the full 5-step process for you. So to do that, I'm going to add a new client to class, and then I'm going to add an ongoing service to a brand new client. That will show us the full 5-step process. So if you like, just imagine as I flick over to class that we've had a new client contact us and say, I need to be represented in court or a tribunal, and we've decided that we will represent that client. We can do that. Maybe it's going to be an ongoing non-legal service that we deliver. Anyway, not super relevant. The way we do this, the way we enter that client into class and then enter a service into that client, then using the new intake process, is to simply click on new intake in the top left there. Last week we looked at conflict checking. We'll look at that again in about 5 minutes time. So I'll click on new intake to begin, funnily enough, a new intake. So this is what we get. Intake step 1, and this is client intake, but the first thing we see that we need to do is enter a service type. So as I said, I'm going to do one of the ongoing service types. I'll do a court tribunal. The date of service you can change if you want. If you want to put in the date that you opened this service, and maybe that's not today, you can go in and change that if you like. The funding category, you would know better than me about which funding categories you need to use or not use. I'm just going to select generalist services just at random there. Problem type, this one is auto-filled for us. I hope it's not for you, it shouldn't be. Anyway, whether it is or not, you will need to choose a problem type. I'll just go through this little screen just quickly. I won't spend too much time on it. But the problem type screen can be a bit confusing because it's so big and there's so much in here. To access it, you click on that magnifying glass icon that we just saw. Now to filter down some of these dozens, maybe hundreds, yeah, we've got 201, as we can see in the bottom left, 201 problem types, and we can filter those down if we like. We can filter them down by a number of ways. We could see just the, I don't know, family law type problem types just at random if we want. We could search for an actual particular problem type or the name of a problem type. I'll go, how did that not work? There we go, because I misspelled it, that's how. So you can do a partial search on what you're looking for, and it will then give you search results there. So once you've found a problem type, just select the tick box in the left and then click this button to select that problem type. The other way to do it is to type in the codes. Let me find a code. You can just go, so if you know the codes, and what they are, you could just go 1310, and there's your problem type. You just select that and click there. That's what a lot of people do. I don't know if that works doing it. No, it doesn't actually. Okay, all right. Now, moving on, the next thing we need to do is just to enter all the data that we need to or can do at this stage. Outreach, office location, interpreter. You can assign this to someone at this stage. You just select someone to assign it to. I'll just close that for now. Created by, you will need to fill in, or that should be required anyway. You can search for someone in here as well. I'll search for myself, I'll select that one. And that is who this is created by service keywords. We put keywords in here for centers to use how they like. A service keyword, I can't think of one off the top of my head. You may have certain keywords for services that you use. Enter them there if you like. Intake notes. You can add intake notes there if you like. I'm not going to be showing you where we find those today, but I will show you those in another training session that we will do in a couple of weeks from now, I believe. Okay, so going back to the top and moving over to the right, we see the client details. Now, the first thing we need is a client type, and we've got a few options there. An individual, which is who we mainly see around the sector. We also see we also have organisations as our clients, or government bodies or agencies occasionally. If it's not anything like that, then we've also got other there just in case. I'll select the individual today, just because that's what those are the clients we mostly see. Now I'm going to enter this as the client name. You may recognize that from last week. We'll see that again pretty soon. Now I just want to mention this, the date of birth. Now we've got the date of birth type. and then the date of birth. And as you can see, the date of birth is required. We've got this red symbol here, which shows us that this field is mandatory. Now, if you don't have a date of birth, you can actually get rid of that date of birth field so that you don't have to enter it and you can move on. You select either unknown or not stated, and that will remove the date of birth field, and you can now move on. Here's keywords again. What's the usual example we give? We've got this client who always turns up in a blue tie. Now I know I'm doing a demonstration for a brand new client that we've never seen before. Maybe this was something we noted about this client. They were wearing a blue tie, so you can put that in as keywords if you like. Keywords is there for centers to use how they like. Okay. The rest of these kinds of things you will know how to enter. That's all pretty self-explanatory. The address, I just want to show you. Oh, I know what I'll do. What's going on? Address type. It's a street or residential address type. I just want to show you there's something to do with the addresses. As I was saying last week, that's not going to be it. It's best to get as much of the address as you can at the very start. It's all to do with data. I won't go into it in too much detail, but if you want to check, you can. We've got this button here. Click here to view on map. If I click that, I'll drag it down so you can see it a bit better, put it in the center, and this is where that address, and Google is telling us that this is a legitimate address. I believe that's the doorway in there or something, to this CLC's Australia office. Okay, so we can verify whether we've got a fully functioning address that is going to work or not using that button. Referral details, if you have them, fill them in there. Okay, so that's pretty much step one of the new intake process. So to move past this, I have a look in the top right, and I'm going to click on step 2, additional parties now. We all know what an additional party is. To add an additional party, you don't actually even need to move the mouse. It's right there. It says add party. Just click on that to add an additional party. Now in the back here, we can see kind of this list view thing. It'll be a list there once we've added them. There's none there because we haven't added any yet. Okay, so we start with the type. So this can be an other party, which obviously is the other party in the legal matter, or it could be a related party. So it might be someone who's related to our client. Forget these things. Some of these are test and dummy things that we've set up in our instance of class with all of our dummy data. Okay, I'll click on related party, and then I'll say the person type is an individual. And again, you've got other options. And again, some of those are dummy and test things. I'll select individual. Now, what we could do is enter first names, last names, everything that we know about this related party. We can add an address for them, and we can add notes for this person as well. The one thing I did want to show you are the buttons we have here. So we've got this little pop-up window, and we've got a save, save and new, save and close. Customize and close we won't really look at. Save and close will just save this related party. I'm just going to put a name in there. And the other option we've got is save and new. So if you've got a client who's got several children and you have to enter all of those children in as related parties because this is a family matter or for whatever reason, we can do something like that. We can enter in the first related party or other party. Maybe there are several other parties, and we can click save and new. That will save that one and give us a brand new screen to do a new one. And the first one has been listed in our list in the back there, and we can enter the second one. And then once we're done, we can click save and close. That's not going to save until I fill in the required fields. Then we can click save and close. Once we've entered in all of them, and they all appear in our list now. Now, from here, we can also do a conflict check on these people. So we've entered in our other parties. We can click this link here in the right to do a conflict check on these people. Click on that button. Once you come through, you can click search and it will give you any options. Obviously, I haven't put in a very legitimate name, so there's no matches. Okay, so once we've done our conflict searches or our conflict checks on our other parties, we can record results. So we can say there's no conflict with this individual. We can say there's a possible conflict. If we click that, I don't know what happens. You should be able to enter reason, notes and whatnot there. If you Can also click on conflict found. If you ever at any stage click on the conflict found button, class will only allow you to enter this service that you're entering as an information or a referral service. So do keep that in mind. If you want to manage possible or potential conflicts, maybe avoid the conflict found button just for the time being until that can be investigated further. So I'll click no conflict, and we can do that for all of our other parties. And then once we've finished with our other parties, we can click intake step 3 right there in the top right. Now, this is going to be what I was mentioning earlier, the inbuilt conflict check. As we saw last week, we looked at the conflict search and filter screen, and I did say that this does appear in other places in class. So here's another place we've found this conflict check screen. Now the name I put in at step 1 of the intake process is carried across here. So all I now need to do is click search, and that's going to display, it should be displaying the, why is that not working? That's rather strange. Should be displaying results. That doesn't, I don't know why that's not working. Just give me a second. Doesn't seem to be working. We're only demonstrating here anyway, so I misspelled that. Oh, just bear with me. I'm just curious about this. Okay, oh, there we go, it is working. All right, never mind that. So once you have done a conflict search, again, you can record results of that conflict check. So you can say this is a new client, that's gonna, you can then list that as there being no conflict found. You can say this is an existing client, and I believe you then get the option to say that also there's no conflict found or potential conflicts that we're going to manage somehow. Or you can say there's a conflict found. As I was saying previously, you can then only enter this service as an information or referral service. So I'm going to select new client because that's the demonstration that I said I would be doing at the start of this demonstration. So I'll click new client. And now I'm going to get this pop-up window which asks me to record a result, the result type. So this is the result type of the conflict check that we've just done. So when you see this screen, you need to select your result of the conflict. So you could say there's a conflict found or a possible conflict, and then you can list ways to manage the potential conflict that is there and record notes about it. You could enter there's no conflict or this is a new client. So I'll enter new client and click save and close, and that will record that result to class. Okay, so that's steps 1, 2, and 3 of the new intake process. So step 4, I believe, is the client details. Okay, so that's recorded successfully. Now that's just going to close itself and open this new tab here. Client details, so this is intake step 4. So step 4 of the intake process is the client details. So now that we've entered that basic information, we can now enter more demographic data, more information about our client. We've got our street list, well, sorry, our address listed. We can enter client notes, click design if it's not working, and then you can enter client notes. Let me scroll back to, we can enter contact details and whatever information we need. Oh boy, I'm running well and truly behind time. Okay, so that's step 4 of the intake process. I'm gonna skip through because you know how to enter details. I'm gonna click save, and that is going to make me fill in required fields. And hopefully, oh, come on, please. What is this? All right, let's see if that will work. Oh no, I've missed this one. Okay, there we go. Okay. I'm thinking I'm also going to need to apologise because it looks like we're going to be running over time today. So that's step 4, just to enter the details about your client. This is going to be step 5, intake step 5, and we come across to the client services. So we enter the details for for this service that we've entered for our client. Now, when this opens, we see the service that we just entered in there, highlighted in a very bright green. Now, anytime you see a service highlighted in this bright green, that means that this service needs attention. So to open this service, to give it its required fields, to fill in the required fields that this service needs, you click on the service ID in that column right on the very left. Click there, that'll open the service, and we can now enter any details, required fields for our service, and then click save or save and close or something like that. I don't really need to show you how to enter data into the system. I'm going to skip through because, again, I'm well and truly running behind. So that's the new intake process. I'll skip through now to triage. Now, the triage system is a system that we really like. We think it's a great system and works really well. We know a lot of centres use it and really like it. For anyone who doesn't know what triage is a medical term. It comes from the medical industry. I think the technical definition is something like the sorting of the wounded by priority or something like that. You know, triage in class is a way to store data about a client before they have had a service delivered. So what that means is that we could enter the client into the system, and we can set them up with a service, but we just leave it in a digital waiting room, what we call triage, until they've had their service from their solicitor, counsellor, whoever it may be. Then we can go in, find that service, and then we can convert that service to whatever we like. Okay, I'll go and show you how we do this. So I'll flick back to class, and I'm going to need another new intake. So I'll click new intake, and that's open to that screen there. Let me just close that. I'll click new intake again, and that will start a new one. Okay, so the only way to enter the service type of triage is using new intake. You can't do it any other way. So you click new intake, and then you select triage from the list. There it is right there. Select that. Now, let me skip through and just enter all the required stuff really quickly, and I'll show you basically how we do this. Demo for triage. I don't seem to be able to spell that word right. Anyway, bear with me for a second. I'm just going to skip through this really quickly. So I'll skip through to step 2. We've already seen additional parties. I'll skip through to step 3. And I'll do my conflict check, and there are a couple of options there. I'm just going to say it's a new service by selecting Save Service. So I'll just save that service to enter that service as a triage service for a new client. So that's done. I can pretty well close this. That was the old one, and I'm back to the start. Okay, so we've saved this service for a new client, and we've saved it as a triage service. Okay, there's another thing I need to show you. Okay, so we've created a service. Damn, yeah, I knew that would happen. All right, so we've created a service. Now, a lot of centers have told us triage works great, but we don't know how to add the demographic data. We can put the service into triage, we can find the services, and I'm going to show you that right now. What we don't know how to do is enter the demographic data for clients once we've created a triage service. So I'll show you how to do that now. Okay, let's flick back to class, and now I'm going to show you where you find your triage services. So we've got this button on the left here, triage, that's where they are. Click on that and that will open the triage list, and we can see at the very top, here's this triage service. We've got pre-triage services in here as well. Now, this was created by me today, and there's the client name demoing triage. So that's the service we just entered. So to enter demographic data for this client, this new client. Once you've just put a service into Triage, you would just open the service by clicking on the link in the service ID column. That'll open the service. Now, once you've opened the service, there's going to be another link there for the client name. There it is. Client name, demo triage. Okay, I knew that would jump around. Let me click on that, and that's going to open the client record. And from here, we can enter demographic data. We can enter all of our demographic data from here. So that's how we do that. Once you're done, click save, save and close, whatever you like. Okay. The other thing I need to show you is converting. So to convert a triage service, it's really pretty basic. I'll flick back to class. Now, this is our triage service here, the one that we just opened. I'll click on that. There's our triage service. So we had a client contact us. We put a service into the triage list for this new client. The client has then waited 2 weeks, 6 weeks, however long it is, until they see their solicitor. And they've now had an appointment with a solicitor, and the solicitor gave them legal advice. I'm just demonstrating here. I'm just making this up as I go. What we want to do is change this service from Triage, and we can just click this thing here, and we can now change it to whatever we want. Maybe it was a legal task that was done. Maybe it's something else. Anyway, what did I say? We did legal advice. So we'll select legal advice, and now we can click save. Now that client we just entered in, that will now be entered into class as a new client that will sit in class. And there'll be a service listed against that client as a legal advice service. So let me flick back to my slides. We've created we've created a triage service. We can only do that through using new intake. We added the demographic data to that client, the new client. Once we created the new client and put a service into the triage list for them, then later on we came back and we converted that service to a different service type. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions, and we've got about 3 minutes before we've been going for about 27 minutes. Anyway, there was one other thing I wanted to go through quickly, and I hope you've got a bit more time. I'd like to talk about data collection again, and I know I spoke about this last week, but this is slightly different, just kind of, excuse me, kind of expanding on it a little bit. I won't spend too much time on it, but there are reasons why some of this is important. So as your national peak body, we use the data that's in class to advocate for the sector. So we want that data to be as good as it possibly can. And particularly with a brand new government in place and a brand new Attorney General, Federal Attorney General, who seems to be saying some nice things about our sector and saying that they would like to help us improve our sector, data couldn't be more important than it ever has been, really. So I'd like to show you a list of fields that are really important ones, and I'll go through why. So let me flick to my next slide, and here's a list of 5 fields. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I added gender just recently. Okay, now some of the reasons why these fields are important is fairly self-explanatory. We want to know what percentages of services are being delivered to women, because as we saw at the election, issues for women are really important. Same with ATSI people. We know that ATSI people are overrepresented in the criminal justice system, so that field is another really important one. I'll stop talking about these and I'll show you where to find them and just go through why some of these are important. So we're on a service screen. Let me click across to the client screen. So here's the client screen, and we see gender right here in the personal details. So there's gender, and here's ATSI status. Now, with some of this data, if you left this blank, it's not going to be the end of the world, and we know that we'll never get 100% collection rates. We are realistic about this, but we'd rather not have to do guesswork. So if you were to come in and select on every client you've got, particularly considering it's a brand new financial year, maybe you just start this as company policy or something for the new financial year, I don't know. Come in and select unknown. This is not stated or inadequately described. Maybe this has absolutely nothing to do with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander legal issues, anything like that. You can use this option unknown, and that takes the guesswork out of it for us. We then don't have to guess, is this client an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person? We know that they're not going to be, or that it's just simply not relevant to this particular service or this particular client on a client page. So there's a couple of our fields, and then I'll flick back over to the service screen. And there's a bunch more here. Let me scroll down, and down here we get service characteristics. So there's the financial disadvantage indicator, family violence indicator, and homelessness status. Now those are really important pieces of data, and we'd like to get that data on every client we possibly could. Sorry, this is a service screen on every service we possibly could. We never will, but if we can just bump those rates up a little bit, that would be great. You know, something like homelessness status can be really tricky. I've heard someone say that, you know, there might be clients who they're asked during the intake stage, are you experiencing homelessness? To which their response is no. But then when they're talking to their solicitor, they just happen to mention that they're couch surfing at the moment, or that they're just crashing in their car temporarily. That could be a form of homelessness status. So we kind of really want to know all of this information about our clients. Excuse me. Okay, there's one more, and I'm going to scroll down a bit. Now, I'm looking at this group of fields, the referral group of fields. As you can see, this has got a white background and it's separated from these other fields. This makes this a group of fields. Anyway, a little technical explanation there. Now, if we're referring a client away, maybe this is a referral service, and we're saying we refer this person, to wherever. I'm just going to select something at random. We're referring someone away. Now, if that's happening, this reason for referral field can actually be one of the most important fields in all of class, and I will show you why. So the reason for referral field, it could be a lot of reasons for it, not in the catchment area. There's just a bunch of reasons in here, and these two here, right here, are two of the most important. Centre does not have the capacity to deliver a discrete service or ongoing service, whichever service type it is. Now, that tells us that you don't have enough funding. Your centre is underfunded, is what that tells us. If your centre was funded properly, then you might have the capacity to deliver this service to this client. So what we do as your national peak is we go around and count up the number of times that these options are used, and we then go to policymakers and to funding bodies and tell them this is happening too often and this sector is definitely underfunded. We've been saying it for a long time, but maybe we'll get a bit of room, a bit of movement on that, hopefully in the future. Okay, now I think that's probably about enough on data collection. I know that's not the fun stuff. Sorry to have to keep harping on about it, but some of that stuff can be important. So we are now 3 minutes over, so I might say thanks. Hope this helps. I'm not seeing any questions. All right, great. I'll let you go and get on with the rest of your day. I hope this did help. So thanks for being part of this training session, and might see you again next week. And it's going to be bye from us at CLC's Australia for today.